Okay, welcome to our grade 9 live lesson today on To Kill a Mockingbird, which is, of course, your required reading for this semester. So you will be answering questions either in a novel guide, or you might be answering questions in a quiz or in some of your assignments for this. So this is why I decided to do a lesson on this text for you. So what I want to do with you today is to just go over the following. So we want to firstly to gain a summary overview of the novel, including the plot and a little bit about the characters. You need to understand and appreciate the significance of historical context within this novel. It is very, very much a novel of its time. And so much of the plot and the characters and the themes resonate within a cultural zeitgeist. So you need to be aware of everything that was going on at the time to really understand and appreciate Mockingbird. So we'll go over that as well. You're hopefully going to gain a basic understanding of the central themes and motifs or symbols within the novel. And as kind of little bonus, there's going to be some comprehension development questions that you can complete in your own time for additional credit. If you want to email me your answers, I'm more than happy to award additional credit for those of you that want to do that. So we're going to get started. This is a very, very dense lesson. There's lots of information here. So bear with me. This will be recorded, so you can go back and play it. If you don't catch something, don't worry. You can go back and watch it again, pause it, and take notes. So for those of you joining us live today, don't worry, you will get a chance to watch this again. Okay, let's get going. Okay, so we're going to start with an overview of the text, the author, and the plot. So here we go. So, as you're probably aware by now, Mockingbird, To Kill a Mockingbird was written by Harper Lee. She was born Nell Harper Lee on the 28th of April, 1926 in Monroeville, Alabama. Her father was a lawyer, and she herself studied law at the University of Alabama in 1945 to 49, but she left before she finished her course to pursue a literacy career. And interesting, as you come to learn about the characters of Mockingbird, there are a lot of crossovers between Harper Lee and Scout, to the point almost it's possible to argue that it's semi-autobiographical. That is one argument you can put forward for Mockingbird. A lot of the ideas, a lot of the characters reflect those in Harper Lee's own life. In 1957, she submitted the manuscript of her novel, but she was told, obviously, that it was more of a series of short stories, and they urged her to rewrite it, which she did for the next 2.5 years, reworking the manuscript until in 1960 it was published. And it was awarded the Pulitzer Prize in 1961, and it has been studied by school children and academics ever since. Interestingly enough, despite the success of the novel, Lee never published another text until 2015, shortly before her death. She published Go Set a Watchman. So interestingly enough, it was her one work, and it's quite an epic one, as you will come to find out. So let's just quickly go over the novel. What happens, the summary of the plot. It's quite long and intricate. My notes here are quite long, so bear with me. So, the novel opens as the narrator, Scout Finch, remembers her brother Jem breaking his arm when he was 13. There are 5 years between Scout and Jem, so she would have been 8 at the time. What's interesting about Mockingbird is this choice of the young narrator of Scout Finch. It's a very, very colloquial narrative. It's spoken as if pretty much you can hear her voice as a young child growing up in Alabama. And it's very, very engaging. It pulls you in straight away. So you don't need to feel scared or intimidated. It's a very, very easy to read novel. It tells the story of these 4 years in Scout's childhood in flashback. It's set in Maycomb, which is where Scout and Jem grow up, 20 miles east of Finch Landing, so it's their nearest town. And this is where Atticus settles when he goes to practice law. So Atticus Finch is the father of Jem and Scout Finch. He didn't have much money, and his first 2 clients lost their cases as they did not follow his advice. So they were hanged. So most people in Maycomb know and respect Atticus because he is one of them. So a little bit of a setting for you here. We've got our narrator Scout. This is her family, her brother Jem. They're very close at this point, and her father Atticus. Their mother died when Scout was 2. They also have their nanny Calpurnia, who you'll meet a bit later on. But this is their essential family, and they live in Maycomb, and they're quite a well-to-do family. They're quite well off because Atticus is a lawyer, although he's obviously not had a lot of money at this point because he has had quite a few losses. However, people respect him. He's a respected member of society, and that's important because you will meet a spectrum of society in this novel, and one of the main themes is prejudice and how people perceive others because of either their place in society, their name, their family history, their job, how much money they have. Harper Lee explores this idea of prejudice because of who we appear to be, and you'll get to know a little bit about that later. Okay. So, Scout's family. As I mentioned, we've got Jem and Scout, brother and sister, and their father Atticus. A little bit of background. Their mother died when Scout was 2 years old. They call Atticus his name rather than Dad. He's an unusual but very kind and wise father, but he's a lot older than you would imagine a father to be. He's helped by Calpurnia, who's their black maid, who he supports when the children are naughty, so they are not spoilt. His wife was a lot younger than him. So it's an important idea is that Atticus is a little bit older. He's very experienced, and he's a very, very important character within this novel because he is a moral compass, not only for the children, but for the community and also for us as readers to look to when the moral storm begins within this novel. Okay, so I'm going to go quickly through a plot summary. What exactly happens in Mockingbird? As I mentioned before, this is very, very dense. There's lots of information, so don't worry if you're not taking it in. It is going to be recorded, and you will be able to access it at your own convenience in your modules page. It'll be in the resources tab. Okay, so what happens? As I mentioned, our narrator is Scout Finch. She's 8 years old. She lives with her brother Jem and their widowed father Atticus in the sleepy Alabama town of Maycomb. Maycomb is suffering through the Great Depression, but Atticus is a prominent lawyer and the Finch family is reasonably well off in comparison to the rest of society. So as I mentioned, their place in society, they're pretty well respected among the community. People look up to them, mostly because of Atticus' profession and his character. He's an upstanding member of society. One summer, Jem and Scout befriend a boy named Dill, who has come to live in their neighborhood for the summer, and the trio act out stories together. Eventually, Dill becomes fascinated with the spooky house on their street called the Radley Place. The house is owned by Mr. Nathan Radley, whose brother Arthur, nicknamed Boo, has lived there for years without venturing outside. So the very, very beginning of this story sets up an interesting microcosm of the larger story, which I'll go into later, where the children begin to taunt and act out adventures around this idea of Boo Radley. This really, they make him out to be a very scary monster, but of course they never see him. Scout goes to school for the first time that fall and detests it. She and Jem find gifts apparently left for them in the knothole of a tree on the Radley property. Dill returns the following summer and he, Scout and Jem begin to act out the story of Boo Radley. Atticus puts a stop to their antics, urging the children to try and see life from another person's perspective before making judgments. So we begin the story with 3 children playing around and
You are currently the only person in this conference.
playing around and teasing this character of Boo Radley because they don't know any better. So we really do start out with this idea of innocence. But on Dale's last night in Maycomb for the summer, the 3 sneak onto the Radley property where Nathan Radley shoots at them. Jem loses his pants in the ensuing escape. When he returns for them, he finds them mended and hung over the fence. The next winter, Jem and Scout find more presents in the tree, presumably left by the mysterious Boo. Nathan Radley eventually plugs the knothole with cement, and shortly thereafter a fire breaks out in another